use generous return policies. Consumer and Business News, Joe McConnell, NBC News Radio.
Dunc Holder, hour number 2 on a Wednesday, March 14th. Larry Holder, Jeff Duncan, Clyde Verdun in our NOLA.com Times Picayune studios. Dave DeCorbier back at iHeart Central. If you missed any of hour number 1, of course, lively free agent talk. Sports1280.com, NOLA.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube page, and of course our posts after, where Jimmy Graham's signing totally thwarted one of Clyde's posts. He was none too happy. That's what you get for being.
I did 3
That's
yesterday.
what you get for being ill and trying to overachieve while you're ill. You gotta slack when you're not feeling well.
I will not make that same mistake twice.
I encourage you not to do that. So, but joining us right here on the show, Eric Edholm from Pro Football Weekly, covers the NFL for Pro Football Weekly. Follow him on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Eric, let's just start with the Drew Brees deal. Are you surprised how this thing panned out, as far as how far seemingly Drew Brees was willing to stay away from the open market, not even really entertain too many offers, and really kind of do the team a solid by not having to push the limit with the Saints?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a couple tense moments there for a lot of people, Breeze included, I'm sure. And, you know, I know it's hard to think of it in terms of hometown discounts and everything, but really, I mean, with the Vikings jumping in there, as they were allowed to do, you know, it really kind of cranked it up a little bit and put them in an interesting spot, put Breeze in a spot where, you know, he had to decide, do I want to stay and take a little less, or a lot less, I should say. And that's what he ends up doing. I mean, obviously he was presented with a really intriguing situation. The Vikings knew, okay, Case Keenum is walking. We're not bringing back Teddy Bridgewater as a starter. Sam Bradford's no longer our guy. If we don't get Kirk Cousins, we're in deep trouble. That's why they make the overtures. We don't know exactly how serious they were, but it certainly seemed like a viable plan B for him. So, you know, ending the way it did, you know, it seems like kind of a one-year-and-go kind of approach. And we'll see. I mean, obviously, it's fascinating on a lot of levels.
Eric, what in this last 24, 48 hours kind of frenzy, what stood out to you? Like, what surprised you, if anything, about this kind of pre-free agency period that we've gone through?
Yeah, obviously, it's like the heavy petting section of free agency. You know, and things get pretty fast and furious, and you go, wow, okay, like, you know, Andrew Norwell, a guard, getting $13.3 million per year. Just happened this morning. Nate Solder, a good but maybe not elite left tackle, getting $15.5 per year. And whereas previously highest paid guys at guard were $12 million, highest paid at tackle was like $13.4. So, you know, we're seeing bumps that are above how much the salary cap goes up. We're seeing bumps of, you know, 12 and 15% at those positions, whereas the cap is going up, you know, by a measure of 6 or 7%. So that's pretty notable. And I think it speaks to the market, where people are saying after Norwell, after Solder, the guard market, not good. The tackle market, not good. The draft, who knows, you know. So sometimes you see that level of desperation. Hey, we're willing to pay for a guy and overspend for him because the options other than them aren't that great.
Eric Edholm of Pro Football Weekly joining us right here on Dunc and Holder. Eric, what position are you maybe surprised hasn't flown off the board as early as these last couple of days? We're to the point where we don't assume running backs are going to fly off the board too quickly, but is there any other spot maybe you're assuming, well, we haven't seen so much movement there in that market?
Yeah, I guess linebacker a little bit. I'd have to sort of go through, you know, I'd have to sort of line up all the positions. I think, you know, it took a little longer in some agents' minds for the cornerbacks to start coming off, but now you're seeing, you know, Trumaine Johnson got $15 million yesterday, and you're seeing some of the nickel guys get near starter money or, you know, above what some slot guys have gotten in the past. So it took a little longer to develop, but it's still there. And there's some okay safeties still out there as well, and that's a position that you could argue has a greater impact in today's NFL than it may have done 5 years ago or something, depending on the team and the system they're running, I guess. So, yeah, running back is the obvious one. But then you see, hey, I'd like to see the details on Jerick McKinnon's contract because, decent little player, but the 49ers giving him $7.5 million per year, again, not knowing the guarantees, that feels pretty high. So that may be an outlier at a position that typically has taken longer to develop and doesn't reap as many benefits as others do.
What's your take on what Les Snead and Sean McVay are doing out in L.A.? I mean, it seems like they've taken a year under McVay, kind of scrutinized the roster, and then decided, okay, let's overhaul a lot of this stuff. I mean, does it feel like they're going for it now to try and make a run in the NFC?
No question. I mean, it's a fascinating situation because, obviously they went from worst scoring offense to best scoring offense in a year's time. You had the defense making some strides. It felt like, boy, if they keep things together, make sure they re-sign Aaron Donald, sort of make one or two interesting moves, they could really develop. But they've gone out and gotten Marcus Peters. They've let Sammy Watkins walk after, trading picks for him last year. And, a lot of people thought like, hey, if you give Watkins another off season with Jared Goff and let them develop that rapport, maybe his role increases. But the price just got a little too high for him, and they were willing to cut bait even though they had spent a good amount to get him. And so, yeah, it is fascinating on the outside to see them move on from Alec Ogletree when they just gave him an extension 5 months ago and things like that. So drastic moves, but I think they smell blood in the water. I think they know that in 2-3 years the 49ers could be really, really good. I think they realize that the Arizona Cardinals are taking a step back. I think they see what the Seattle Seahawks are doing and say, now is the time to strike. The teams that have dominated this division the last couple of years, we won it, and now we want to keep adding and pushing the pedal a little bit.
Eric Edholm of Pro Football Weekly joining us right here on Dunc Holder. What do you think happens with Ndamukong Suh?
That's a great question. It's been a little quiet. There have been some people who say, hey, the Patriots are trying to make a run at him, or, certainly a team like the Cowboys would have to be interested even though their salary cap situation isn't great. I would think the Oakland Raiders are kind of in that same position where they love him, and he fits the mold of a perfect Raiders player, and John Gruden's talking about turning back the clocks 20 years, right? That would fit right in with that, but, it comes down to price. I mean, he's obviously a guy who was set to make a boatload of money this year. The Dolphins weren't going to do that again. They caught him. What's he willing to play for? I don't know. I mean, that's the biggest question, I think. So I'm sure he wants to go to a winner. I'm sure that's part of it. But I'm guessing he was counting on making some of that money this year. So it's got the financials have to make sense for him. So I haven't really seen what the market is, and that hurts a guy like Sheldon Richardson. People are interested in him. Well, they may want to kick the tires on Suh first and see what the deal is there, even though he's a couple years older. So that's a tricky one. I haven't been able to sort of make that match yet, and there's been a little silence on Suh's end right now.
And one of the teams that Larry and I have talked about on the program that we're not sure what the plan is, maybe you can enlighten us a little bit, is over in Carolina. I know they've got a lot of upheaval and uncertainty with ownership and even general manager's position, but it seems like a lot of people are leaving there. I'm not sure how many are coming in. And I know they just signed or agreed to terms with a cornerback, but what's your take on what's going on in Carolina?
Yeah, I mean, I think it was, letting Norwell go was a tough blow, but they kind of were resigned to that. Getting Rashad Breeland, I think, is important when you want to cover he's a bigger corner. You got to cover Michael Thomas and Mike Evans and Julio Jones 6 games a year. You might as well get a guy who's had success against some of those bigger receivers in the past. That makes sense to me, even though they trade away a young corner in Darryl Worley. So, Jonathan Stewart and Charles Johnson, all these other vets they let go, it was probably time for all those guys. So I kind of understood those. But are they really upgrading with Torrey Smith at receiver? I don't know. I mean, again, he's a nice player. I'm sure he'll help the locker room, and he's going to be a good fit there. He's not going to demand the ball a ton. But like you guys, I'm a little bit curious about the big picture. I can't quite see what's happening right now. Obviously, we'll have to wait for everything to kind of fill in. But it's a team that seems like it has a window now where they can win some games, but it almost feels like they're taking a small step back this season.
Eric Edholm, Pro Football Weekly, covers the NFL for Pro Football Weekly. Must follow on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. Hey, Eric, appreciate the time. I know how busy you are. Appreciate it as always, my friend.
All right, fellas. Talk to you real soon. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Eric Edholm. Must follow on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. And I'm with you. I'm wondering just what's the plan in Carolina. We saw Norwell go. Star Latulele. They brought in Breland as their corner.
He's replacing Worley, basically. They got Bradbury,
Worley,
who's their number one corner.
Right. But Jonathan Stewart looks like he's going to be going to the Giants. You knew they were going to unload him anyway.
Yeah.
But it just seems like, I know last year they were 11-5, but man, I'm waiting for them to kind of take a little bit of a dip again.
I constantly count them out, and they constantly prove me wrong. I keep waiting for the shoe to drop, and this may be the year. I don't know. I mean, I thought the move a year ago to trade Kelvin Benjamin was actually, I could understand that because I think Benjamin was a little overrated, wasn't the same player he was early in his career, and they went for a younger group. But they need receivers, they need threats on the perimeter. They lose Norwell, who's going to be the replacement for him. Their offensive line had finally kind of gotten good, and then they lose one of their best players. So I'm not sure what's going on there, and I don't think there's a lot of direction.
No. GM upheaval through all this last couple of months, and like you said, the ownership, and you know who else has been quiet? Atlanta's been pretty
very quiet.
I haven't heard or written or seen anything.
No, I mean, we keep hearing rumors that Dan Quinn would want to bring in some of these Seattle players if they hit the market, but I haven't seen anything materialize.
Nope, no Michael Bennett, no Richard Sherman. Maybe, what if they trade for Earl Thomas? I don't know, but I feel like they're in good shape at safety with Keanu Neal, and I forget who the other
I think they're taking a very similar approach to what the Saints are doing, letting the market settle, and then they'll make their targeted moves.
I'm curious to see, and the moves that we've seen out of Tampa, we've seen the big extension from Mike Evans, and then who else did they? Oh, they re-signed Cameron Brate to a significant contract.
Brett Grimes.
They brought Brett Grimes back for one more year. So they've kind of focused in on their own. I haven't seen them do much movement either. So not a lot of movement really in the NFC South as of right now.
No, it's funny. It seems like most of the movement, most of the reports around the league center around about 7 or 8 teams. You got Jacksonville, Miami, Buffalo, Cleveland.
The Eagles.
The Cardinals are starting to make some moves. The 49ers and Rams, Packers. But it's certain teams you don't hear anything from. Denver's obviously making a move for Case Keenum. We knew they'd be in the quarterback hunt. But for the most part, there's a lot of teams that are just sitting still. Now, the Giants got involved by getting their left tackle. They desperately needed a left tackle.
Eric Flowers, not so good. Nate Solder, a little better, and yet they're paying a boatload for him. Boatload.
No, they had to overpay because Nate Solder actually. Someone got a hold of him in the Boston market. I mean, he wanted to come back to New England, and a lot of people thought he might go to Houston because Houston needs a left tackle. And they've been pretty active. At least you hear a lot of things coming out of their camp. They haven't signed a lot of players down in Houston. But that's a team that I think would be an attractive spot for a free agent because you're expecting J.J. Watt to be back healthy. They should get Deshaun Watson back, and we all saw what he did. He's a very promising quarterback. And that's recognized as a very good organization to play for. So I would think they would be an attractive spot for some free agents coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's take a break right here on the show. In about 10, 11 minutes, we will catch up with our own Will Guillory, of course, covers the Pelicans for NOLA.com and the Times-Picayune. They picked up a win last night to basically hold serve with the rest of the Western Conference. So we'll get the latest from him and continue on with free agency talk. It's not going anywhere, and these players have yet to even sign deals. So there are so many other players that we're hearing about that have not made deals yet. So we'll be talking about that throughout the rest of the show as well. So come on back. Sports 1280, NOLA.com, the iHeartRadio app. Dunc Holder.